And we're on. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This is the What's New in AWS, brought to you by Enterprise Support live stream, Wednesday, the 17th of November, 11 a.m. Sydney time. Hello to everybody that's connected in on YouTube and Twitch. Hopefully, if you've joined us on YouTube, you can hit that subscribe button. If you're on Twitch, follow the official AWS Twitch channel. We'll be here every month bringing you new releases on AWS. So my name is Mark Napoli. Thank you for joining. We're doing these every month, and we're bringing you the latest releases from AWS from the last month. We've got some new releases across compute. We've got some machine learning updates, database, and security. And the idea is to bring you guests each month that are specialists in the services that we've released. Enterprise Support's been running as an AWS product for about 10 years, and we work extensively with customers to get them up on these new services. So welcome, thank you. Let's introduce the team. So we've got Carlos, Rovan, and Matt. How are you all? Carlos, give us a wave.
Hi, everybody.
Rovan, also dialing in from Sydney, one of our principal TAMs. How's it going?
Howdy, how are you going?
Yeah, really well, thanks. And Mr. Platts, Matthew Platts, dialing in from Brisbane. How are you, Matt?
Very good. Morning, everyone.
Morning. So I think between all of us, we've got about 15 years of combined experience at AWS, always in enterprise support. And we're gonna jump straight into our first bundle of releases, which is in the data and ML space. So Carlos, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mark. Really excited to kick off, I guess, the second edition of our What's New stream this week, particularly focused on the data and ML space.
All right. Well, let's start with the first one here, AWS Aurora, which is one of our database services, and we've got this new feature now around Babbelfish. So, Aurora PostgreSQL, good open source database, has been on Aurora for a while, but we've got this new feature, right? So it's about, as I understand it, it's about helping customers migrate commercial databases to open source databases on AWS. Is that right? Is that your understanding of Babbelfish and what it's going to do for customers?
Yeah, we just announced Babbelfish for Aurora Postgres to be generally available. So I guess this announcement is really for focus on the application owners running estates backed by SQL Server who have been thinking about migrating to open source databases such as Aurora Postgres, and also thinking about the complexity in the strategy required to make it happen from an application compatibility perspective. So with the announcement of the GA of Babbelfish for Aurora, which was actually previously in preview and announced in reInvent 2020, we now have a tool available for our customers to make their strategic approach in migration to such a change a lot more flexible. So, as you mentioned, Aurora Postgres SQL, fully managed relational database engine that's fast and provides the reliability of really high-end commercial databases, but of course has the charm of RDS's resiliency. And what's best is its cost effectiveness that you get from open source databases. So in saying that, application owners who want to migrate off their current commercial SQL databases to open source databases like Aurora Postgres to take advantage of these sorts of privileges generally face quite a few challenges.
What would some of those key challenges be? I mean, firstly, I love the fact that you refer to RDS as a charming service. It certainly is. But what are those key challenges for customers? And more importantly, what can this service do to help them overcome those?
Yeah, so when I think about it, I think of three main challenges that customers face, and I guess it's not an exhaustive list, but there's some of the three main ones that I like to think about. And these two challenges actually are generally covered and helped by AWS services to answer them as well. So for example, the first challenge for customers would be to consider converting their schema between different engines, right? When doing a migration. And we have the AWS schema conversion tool, which generally assists customers with this particular challenge. And then the second challenge is really around the reliability of moving their data across into an open source engine or endpoint. But again, from an AWS perspective, we have an answer, right? We can leverage our database migration service or they also have the option of using other native tools. But then for me, the biggest challenge when I look at these sort of migrations is the application, right? So in certain scenarios, you may need to consider for migration a rewrite of your code to support the change, or even face trying to switch connection drivers for older apps that may not even be compatible. So Babbelfish enables Postgres SQL to understand database requests, both the command and protocol from applications written for Microsoft SQL Server without changing libraries, schema, or SQL statements.
Is it? I mean, a lot of customers are depending on stored procedures, through SQL extensions. Is it really as simple as Babbelfish just sort of translating these to native Aurora?
Yeah, Babbelfish, we're essentially providing an open source database option that essentially speaks two languages, or you can consider it being bilingual, right? It can understand SQL Server's native T-SQL, but it can also understand Postgres' PL/SQL. And all of this, of course, is backed by a single Aurora Postgres endpoint. So essentially, to answer your question is, yeah, Babbelfish enables applications designed to use SQL Server functionality will essentially behave the same on Postgres SQL as they did on an SQL Server. So you can then get off your commercial SQL database into open source a lot quicker, as it completely removes the complexity in application refactoring. And that saves months or even years, depending on the team, of work that you would have previously required to kind of do just to get into the position of a migration, right? And it also reduces your migration risks, as there's less code changes required in your application, which is always a win, because really we understand that the reality of change is hard sometimes. And this is true even when you have compelling reasons to migrate. If we can minimize the moving parts and yet still yield the same outcome, then we're definitely putting our customers a step ahead, in my view. And that's essentially what Babbelfish is giving to our customers here. And just another note, Babbelfish is now GA, but it's also open source. So we're posting the Babbelfish code onto GitHub, where AWS and the community can contribute, and customers are also free to fork the code off on their own. Maybe create a variant that may meet any specific requirements they may have. And this is definitely a project that's really exciting, and will be interesting to see how this improves customer migration strategies moving forward.
Nice. Yeah, I know you've got a few customers did some large-scale migrations, so I'm sure that's going to be useful for them. What about the next one? So Data Exchange. This is in the analytics space. Data Exchange has been around since, I think, 2019. It's a way of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you can data providers can make their data sets available for others to use through the marketplace. And I've even seen some sort of mock data tests that people can use for testing. Is that a sort of brief summary of what Data Exchange is?
Yeah, I guess if we take a step back, we know that these days data is the key competitive edge for any business in any industry these days. And I would say that it's influenced the way businesses innovate as well. And so it's critical to be able to gather, store, analyze data efficiently to make really informed and fast business decisions. And the reality is that data is sourced, as you mentioned, from many different areas and third parties or processes. And AWS Data Exchange is a service that makes it easy for our customers to find or subscribe to and use third-party data in a centralized marketplace, if you will. And as you said, Mark, Data Exchange makes the process of exchanging this data secure, but also democratized and very seamless and easy for both subscribers and providers of this data, making this service a favorite for many folks.
Yeah, so prior to this, you couldn't integrate it with Redshift, or you had to do some heavy lifting to do that. What's the integration now with Redshift?
Yeah, well, now we've just announced that public preview of AWS Data Exchange for Redshift, which is a feature that enables our customers to integrate with the third-party data in AWS Data Exchange, with the added convenience to now query or provide data sets directly from their own Amazon Redshift data warehouse within a few minutes. So I guess with this integration, you can take your data currently sitting in your own Redshift data warehouse and combine it with any other data sets provided over AWS Data Exchange, and you won't have to worry about any extract or transform or load tasks, really making the task itself of bringing different data sources together for your purpose pretty easy and simple.
Nice.
Yeah, and then actually there's another one. In addition to this, like since customers are now capable to directly query, provider data warehouses as well, they can be certain that they've got the most up-to-date data set, which is pretty powerful and handy in, I guess, today's fast-paced world.
Any use cases you can think of for customers that might immediately come to mind?
Yeah, look, well, exchange of data has so many use cases, right? For example, we know that financial services institutions have been sharing data for decades. And there's also the medical industry where medical research is needed to acquire data from different sources of tests to evaluate the impact, let's say, of certain drugs and treatments for patients. There's also the exchange of data in retail, right? So they need to understand what or how to position the launch of products or develop strategies around it. And they can use different sets of data for that. And then there are the newer use cases that we're becoming familiar with around IoT, manufacturing, natural disaster prevention. So there's so many different opportunities that we can contribute to. And with the new integration with Redshift, customers should be delighted with the improved experience.
Yeah, nice.
So Data Exchange is available for preview, right, in all regions where Data Exchange and Amazon Redshift RA3 instances are available. So folks, be sure to reach out to your account team and check out this preview for Amazon Data Exchange for Redshift. So Mark, I guess enough of me babbling around about Babbelfish and Data Exchange. How about we talk some fraud detector?
Sure.
And I know there were a few releases from Fraud Detector, and I know from my past experience working in the development warehouse, online applications are exposed to both legitimate and fraudulent user transactions all the time, and I get the verification process for these sorts of things is always evolving. I guess question for you, would it be safe to say that online fraud is on the rise?
I think it is, and you mentioned verification. That's a big one, right? So merchants, online merchants, trying to verify who the user of a card or of a system is. I mean, that can be difficult, but it's not the only thing that they face, right? There's another issue such as chargeback. I learned about this the other day, where online merchants will sell something to someone, that person will purchase it, but perhaps they will receive the good, but then go back to the e-commerce provider, the payment provider, and say, I didn't receive my goods, right? And so that then ends up going back to the merchant, and they have to wear that cost. So it is on the rise. There's an estimate that it's over the next 5 years, something like $200 billion. That's with a B, will be lost to online fraud. Yeah, so it's a problem. Yeah.
Wow. So those are significant numbers, and I guess the question that comes to mind to me is, I guess, how is AWS positioning itself to help?
Yeah. Well, we're fortunate to have what I call the bigger brother, or the bigger sister, which is Amazon. The retail store's been dealing with this problem for 20 years, and it's built a lot of fraud detection capabilities. So a while back, we released Amazon Fraud Detector. So it's an AWS service, which is basically supervised machine learning via a managed service, right? So if you're a customer using this service, you've got an historical data set, what we call an event data set. You throw that up into S3, you select your fraud detection model, and then basically the service does the rest, right? So it'll look at that data, it'll decide whether it needs to do any pre-processing of the data. It'll select the algorithm for you, it'll do the training for you, and then it'll deploy the model for you, right? And give you a score, right? So you integrate this into your checkout, and as people are going through and buying things off your online store, you make an API call to Fraud Detector, and within milliseconds, you're getting a score back that tells you, hey, is this a risky transaction or is it not? Is it something you should go ahead with? So yeah, that's how we've been helping with Fraud Detector. And yeah, there's a few updates to that. The first is the model that we use. We've used what's called an online fraud insights model. So this is great when you don't have a lot of data about the person, right? So Carlos is buying something for the first time. We don't know whether he likes to buy, sports cars or basketball gear, whatever it is. The model is great when you're seeing someone for the first time, but this new model, transaction fraud insights, is when you have some history of interactions, right? So we know, or the model knows, Carlos likes to buy, I don't know, t-shirts on a Saturday, or has a certain pattern of behavior when he buys. So the model is better trained for those sorts of interactions.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And just by the way, I like to buy cryptocurrency on a Saturday, but that's another topic for another day. But yeah, there's quite a few other changes here. Is there any other enhancements to Fraud Detector that we can talk about?
Yeah, there's two more. There's some pricing updates we'll get to, but the other one, which I think is really important, is this idea of being able to support event data sets, right? So what you don't want is when you train your model, the model at that point in time is great at dealing with transactions that it knows about, but you'll continue to get new transactions, right? So you don't want your model to go stale. And to ensure that it stays fresh, what customers had to do previously was upload through S3, then point the fraud detector service to S3, retrain it. That becomes a bit of a process. So now you can just upload historical event data directly into fraud detector, right? So you can do it through a CSV upload in the console, but most people will use the send event API. So you just basically stream your events into fraud detector, and you can get retraining in seconds. You close that feedback loop a lot faster. So that one's really cool. I like that as a new feature.
That is pretty powerful. And I think I kind of alluded to this one in talking about currency earlier, but I hear that there's also some help to our customers from a cost or price reduction perspective.
There is. We like most services, we have a tiered system with this service. So previously, if you wanted to get to the 75% discount tier, you had to be doing 1.2 million predictions per month. I mean, that's a fair number of predictions, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Now you only have to be doing 100,000 predictions, and you'll get to that tier. But it's not just the savings that you get from using the service; it's all of the downstream headache that you can avoid from using the service. That's really the knockout feature, I think, for customers. So yeah, price reductions on that one.
Wow, all three of those enhancements wrapped up into one. That's an amazing month of updates for Fraud Detector, and fantastic. And I'm sure
Really
customers
cool.
will use that to increase their security posture for online fraud detection. Speaking of security, I guess it's time to bring in Rovin and Jehan, as we have some wonderful updates and a demo, I believe, coming up.
Thanks, Matt. Mark and Carlos. Apology. Actually, Mark is my manager. Forgetting his name is interesting. Anyway, I'd like obviously to welcome anyone who just joined us now as we go through the recent announcement from AWS services and features. It's quite interesting to hear about all of these billions of dollars that can be lost through fraud activities. 400 billion, Mark was saying, far out. That's a substantial amount. And it's really great to hear that AWS is leaning in to help our customers getting on top of it, using something like Fraud Detector by simplifying the data upload and also reduce its costs. So awesome news. And it's a great segue to security, as Carlos was saying. And with me today, I have a special guest, Jae Hong from our team in Korea. Jae Hong, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Loban. Hello, everyone. This is Jeon Hwang. I'm a security specialist technical account manager of AWS. Today, I'd like to share some short demos on the recent release of the AWS security domain that were addressed by Loban.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. So the first announcement is about Firewall Manager, and customers use it to deploy and configure rules across their entire organizations through or even on accounts, not only AWS organization, for services like Shield Advanced, WAF, and VPC VPC logs. I can see some screen issues here, and AWS Network Firewall Manager. So with the recent announcement, Jay, now we can configure logging for AWS Network Firewalls that is provisioned using Firewall Manager policy, obviously to centralize logging from all of AWS accounts and also VPCs within one central log. Do you want to maybe show us the demos that you prepared for us today on how to do that?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, as mentioned, now AWS File Manager supports centralized logging of AWS network firewall logs into a certain S3 bucket. To configure centralized login, you can go to AWS File Manager and click on Security Policies, then go for the Create Policy. I will select policy type of AWS network firewall, and I will leave the reason as US East 1 and give some policy name, ANF test P01. And you can add any rule groups you want to add. I will just add just one rule group only. Then you can see there is a login configuration just below stateful rule groups. You can enable alert logs or pro logs or for both. And you can select your S3 bucket to have those logs into.
Awesome. So what type of data these logs contain, Jay?
Yeah, each log entry provides information such as the name of the firewall, the availability zone associated with the firewall endpoint, the timestamp, and of course, detailed information about the event itself.
Cool.
Okay, so let's complete the setting. I will leave anything else as default. Oh, by the way, you can have you can adjust your policy scope to include all the account under your organization, or include any specific account, or include all and exclude specific account. In this demo, I will just add one account.
Awesome. So what happens if one of our team members maybe create new resources under this account of choice or the entire organization? Do we need to keep track of all of these resources as they get created?
Well, if you create resources in a VPC in the network firewall policy scope, that resource will be protected automatically by the rule you just created.
Awesome. So we don't really need to keep track of any resources. Firewall Manager policy will apply the firewall rules on a new account if we chosen the entire organization, or even resources that get created over time under these accounts.
Yes, you're right. So let me finish creating policy. So yeah, once created, this security policy will generate a network firewall in the scope, and you can see what kind of the resources are under compliant or not.
Awesome. So now moving to the second announcement, and that's IAM Access Analyzer. So customers using IAM Access Analyzer to identify resources within their environment that is shared with said entity, and that seems like S3 bucket or maybe IAM roles. So when we enable IAM Access Analyzer, we actually create what we call a zone of trust for the accounts or the organizations that we've chosen. Any access from a principal within this zone of trust is considered okay or trusted. However, if IAM Access Analyzer analyzed any policy that grant an external entity access to any of these resources, it will create what we call a finding. And a finding contains details about the policies that grant the access, the resource that actually get accessed or about to get accessed, and also the third party or the external entity who has that privilege or permission. And while we are on the IAM Access Analyzer, we have customers that always ask us, how can they create the least privileged permissions to their IAM users or IAM roles without going through the guessing work? How can they have some informative or can make informative decisions based on the data. And this is where IAM Access Analyzer can help us with, because it can identify what exactly permission required by any IAM role based on CloudTrail logs. And Jay Hong actually have created a demo for us to walk us through how to do that. Do you want to kick off, Jay?
Yes, of course. As you know, in April this year, IEM Access Analyzer added policy generation to help you create IEM policies based on your actual CloudTrail activity. Now we added even more services to generate policy template for granular access management. The generated policy makes it easier to grant only required permissions for your workload. So let's see how we can use this benefit. First, go to IEM console and click on any user or role to generate policy. In this demo, I will choose S3 test 01. From the permission tab, scroll down and you can see there is a blue button named Generate Policy under Generate Policy based on CloudTrail event menu. I already have one, but I will do it again. So you can select time period. Since this user was generated about 19 days ago, I have 19 days of period, but you can select to 90 days. Yeah.
90. Yeah.
Yeah, 90. And you can choose your CloudTrail, and then you can specify the reason. And then you can create and use a new service role or use an existing service role. In this demo, I will create a new service role. So creating service role would take 30 seconds, and then that service role will start analyze your CloudTrail logs, CloudTrail events, and it will take up to 30 minutes, depends on the amount of the CloudTrail events. So once generated, you can see, I will select another account to save some time. You can view generated policy, and it will show all the actions you have performed based on your CloudTrail event. Since this user is admin user, I've done a lot of actions. And then you can add
granular, actually. It's
the
findings there under each of the services. All of the action get done by the user, so it's very granular kind of information that it get exported from CloudTrail.
Yes, exactly. So if you want, you can also add more resources, or if you can add some conditions. So you can see there is an add a resource button and add a condition button. And there is an error because I didn't specify my accounts here, but you can use your own account to complete the policy.
Awesome. So Jay, now we created a policy with least privilege access to that IAM user. Are we able to maybe track or trace their access pattern using IAM Access Analyzer?
Well, we have another wonderful function called Access Advisor. It's confusing sometimes. You can use Access Advisor to check last access history for each service. And also, for more details, you can always go to the CloudTrail logs for further investigation. However, Access Analyze provide the policy generation function and also provide the external resource which open to the external accounts.
Gotcha. So practically, we use the Access Advisor to analyze the access pattern of our existing IAM users. However, we use the IAM Access Analyzer instead to analyze the policies that provide access to external entity within our accounts or resources. Awesome.
Yes.
Thanks, Jay. And that will take us to the third announcement today, and the most favorite one, Security Hub. It provides obviously a comprehensive view of our security posture across the entire AWS organization or the entire environment. And that's because it aggregates all of the security findings from different AWS services. To mention few, we have AWS Macy, Amazon Macy, as a matter of fact, AWS Config, System Manager, Patch Manager, IAM Access Analyzer, Firewall Manager, and there is a lot more. I guess I already forgot. However, there's also a cool thing, which is not just AWS services and security findings that you get from there. If you do have one of AWS partners, and we have over 60 partners out there that you can aggregate the security findings from their solutions as well within Security Hub. So it's internally using AWS security services, and also you can integrate partner security solution findings in Security Hub. So with the new announcement, Jay, we can now have or call APIs to Security Hub within our VPC without the need to go over the internet, which is really cool that we have now Security Hub supports the VPCs through VPC endpoints through a private link. I guess it's already available across all of the regions, if I'm not wrong. Is that right, Jay?
Yes, Security Hub is available for every region, and then you can use that benefit from every region you are having.
Awesome. And with these security findings that get aggregated from all of these security services, are the customers able to maybe measure their environment against industrial benchmark, like PCI, for example?
Yes, of course. Security Hub support industry standard like PCI DSS, and also CIS AWS Foundation standard, and AWS Foundational Security Best Practices.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. So it's really good to hear that Security Hub can aggregate the security findings, alert, prioritize it from all of the security services, and also allow you to monitor your environment and automate all of the security finding based on the industrial benchmark. And with that, I will hand over to Matt to go through compute. Thanks, Jay.
Much, Rovan.
Hey, Mark. Thanks, Rovan. Hey, Matt. How are you?
Very good.
Good. I just want to answer a quick question on the comments. We had Satamuk ask about the cloud practitioner exam. We'll cover that for a minute, and then get into some of these compute releases. So the practitioner exam it's a foundational exam. It takes about 90 minutes to complete. It's a multiple choice exam with 65 questions. It's really foundational, right? So it covers cloud concepts like scalability. Why is the cloud a pay-as-you-go model? What's the role of OpEx versus CapEx in the cloud? It covers some security and compliance. So some of the services that Rovan and Jaehun just covered will be important. So understanding what those security services are and sort of how they work, the concepts of roles and policies, and all of the good things that we have in the cloud, and then billing and pricing. But the billing and pricing world in AWS can be new to a lot of people, from on-demand pricing through to capacity reservations, which we're going to cover here today, Matt. There's some new releases in that space, but I don't find it a very difficult exam, but I've got 8 years of Amazon experience, so that it's probably not a good measure of it. But the guidance is 6 months of working in and around cloud and AWS if you're going to sit for that exam. Now, Matt, Elastic Beanstalk. I remember using Elastic Beanstalk when it first came out, I think 2016, and I was a little bit frustrated that the sort of the database layer, it was building a three-tier web app at the time. The database layer was sort of locked in to Elastic Beanstalk, and I couldn't really decouple that from the environment lifecycle of the application. Has that changed now? Is that what this first database decoupling release is about?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what we've done, Mark, is we've taken that database component, and now we've just decoupled that database instance from the life cycle of that application environment. So you might be familiar with doing a canary deployment or doing blue-green releases, but ultimately, as you're moving through your non-production environments, Elastic Beanstalk is managing that release for you. So what we've enabled now is the ability to say that, look, this database that this application relies on is also potentially used by other resources, maybe another non-production environment, or maybe even another team that has their own application deployed and using that same database. Which is
Gotcha.
really giving our customers a lot more flexibility on how they manage that component.
So yeah, I mean, what will this mean for customers that are thinking about using Elastic Beanstalk? Does this create more options for them?
Yeah, definitely, right. And it also gives them a bit more choice as well when it comes to how much of their environment they would like to manage within Elastic Beanstalk. So previously, if you wanted to do something similar to this, effectively that component would just be completely unmanaged by EB. It would just be
Right.
off to the side. You'd have a configuration file somewhere that might be talking to that database instance. But now you can bring that in as a managed resource and get some of the other benefits that EB provides around application and environment teardown, etc.
Okay. And is it difficult to turn on? How do people do that?
No, it's super easy. There's just a couple of configuration values that you can find in one of the AWS RDS DB instance namespaces. It's pretty easy.
Okay, that's easy. Okay,
Yep.
cool. Yeah, I love that one.
Yep.
And so welcome to everyone that's new to the stream. We're running for another 5 or 10 minutes, so bear with us. We're going to get into capacity reservation fleet now. It's a new release for EC2. I mean, capacity reservations are important, right? This is what allows customers to reserve capacity for instance types. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so what we've just implemented is a new fleet option into our on-demand capacity reservations, or ODCRs as we call them, and that just gives customers an option to reserve capacity across a prioritized list of instances,
Okay.
which gives them a bit more flexibility on what they're choosing to use at that point in time.
Okay. So
Yeah.
where have you seen this used? What have you seen your customers use this for?
Yeah, a few examples. So very much so, if you're expecting a significant large-scale event, for example, such as a marketing campaign, or maybe you've got a product launch coming up and you really wanted to provide some assurance around those EC2 resources that you think you might need as your environment and your customers kind of come in to that additional workload. The other example I've seen as well is in regards to, say, for example, virtual desktops. Some of our customers are looking for assurance when they migrate some of their internal teams over from a physical to a virtual desktop.
Okay.
And they want to be able to make sure that when their internal staff need it, that capacity is there and available as well.
Okay. And is it easy to purchase? Do customers have to commit to a certain period of time for this?
No, it's you commit to it when you want it, and then you can turn it off at any time. It's very flexible in regards to when you want to actually when you want to have that capacity available to you as well, and it fits into that broader picture as well. So in regards to, we've got on-demand capacity reservations which provide that assurance to the EC2 capacity that you're looking for. But also, tying that in with things such as savings plans and reserved instances as well, to making sure that when you have access to that compute, you're also wrapping it in as many cost optimization capability as you need, in the sense of reducing that ongoing cost.
I know you love to turn instances off, so I'm sure that's making you happy.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing cheaper than turning it off, right? But if you need to keep it on, we've got savings plans and RIs there, which very much kind of reduce that ongoing spend.
Yeah, nice one. All right, so AWS Batch and the management of steps functions. So if you haven't seen step functions in the console, I love the visualization tool around orchestrating AWS services. We've had that for a while, but so there's now an integration with AWS Batch. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's right. So AWS Batch now, you can manage AWS step functions workflows within the UI of the console. So for anyone who's not too familiar with step functions, it allows you to visualize and orchestrate AWS services to build serverless applications. And now with that integration to Batch, it's really giving you a powerful tool to kick off and orchestrate, schedule, prioritize, retry jobs, etc., in relation to anything that you might have had deployed or managed through step functions.
Yeah, nice. Is there can people take a look at sort of sample projects somewhere?
Yeah. There's There's definitely some sample projects that you can take a look at as well on our GitHub page. If you haven't used step functions before, I really recommend just jumping in and having a bit of a play. I mean, it's really easy to connect two lambdas together and start to build a step 1, step 2 type process, and then see how it all integrates, tie that into batch in regards to automated job retries and notifications, and just seeing how that entire workflow really helps not just automate, but provide assurance around some of these business critical jobs.
Yeah, nice one. All right, so they're all the November releases for compute. So that's the end of all of our releases for November. But we do have reInvent coming up, and we're talking about 3 days of releases at the end of November. So we're going to do a 1-hour special of this live stream next month, because we know we're going to have a lot of services to cover. Raven, what are you looking forward to at reInvent? Any particular releases you think you're keeping an eye out for?
It's going to be exciting times for sure, Mark. AWS celebrating the 10th anniversary of reInvent this year. So looking forward to all of the services and feature announcements. Definitely quite pumped as everyone else. I'll be a bit selfish here and say I'll look for security and governance. But yeah, definitely it's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah, and Carlos, I know the US of A is your home ground. Are you planning to get back to Las Vegas for this event?
I wish I could, but it looks like I'm going to be watching reInvent from Australia like the rest of us this year. But
I'm happy to fly over for you, Carlos, if you like.
You should talk to your manager about
that. I just want to highlight, there was also a comment on Data Exchange about the potential for fintech companies, making it, it takes weeks in terms of getting all the approvals. And that's one of the challenges that Data Exchange, circumvents for customers, as well as, avoiding the traditional channels that make just sharing those data and making it available for both subscribers and providers, a huge obstacle. So thanks for the comment there, Jay Stewart.
Yeah, approvals can slow people down.
Yeah.
All right, we're out of time. We're going to see you next month at 1 p.m. on the 17th of December. That's a Friday for the next stream. No, don't go anywhere. The infamous Matt Coles will be on in about 20 minutes to run Devs in the Shed. So that's one of my favorite Twitch live streams. But thank you all for joining, and we will see you again next month.
Thanks, everyone.
See you, everyone.